So both Mary Magdalene and Yeshua will say, don't follow me. We're just pointing to what exists here for everyone. And we have been willing to work through our distortions to give you a taste of what is possible for you to do to yourself, within yourself. It exists within everyone. So the return of the divine feminine, this is a big thing in our culture right now, and I subscribe to it. It's like bringing back into balance the Sophia Christ light. And maybe there's different words in different cultures. Again, I speak to the one that's dominant in my culture and in my language, or our language, the English language. But if you look into other cultures, they'll have different names for it. But because it's not something that has been invented by the ego, it exists beyond our dimension through all the dimensions, you'll see a commonality. And in that commonality, you have creation itself, right? You have God, the source of all creation, where it doesn't have any personality to it. It doesn't have anything that a human could really identify with. It's a emanating frequency. And when that frequency wanted to experience itself, then it started to birth something. So the first birth really is, I believe, it's the feminine force of creation. It's the divine mother. It's the womb of creation. It's the Sophianic lineage. Into the fire, here we go. Into the fire, head to toe. Into the fire, to be seen. Into the fire, to be.
Hello, this is Mark A. Lewis. This is the Sacred Village podcast. Today I have my tendency to use the word special in the first interview that I had with Ryan Denault. This came up, and this idea of being special or unique, and I want to say special guest. Like it just seems so natural and just the thing to say. But I do have to stop myself and bring attention to what that really means, and what am I really saying when I say special? But I have it's a woman, so that makes it unique, but it's beyond unique. It's the first guest that is female that I'll be having on this podcast, and for me that's significant. There is the notion, that at the end of the day we're all the same, but we're also not. I feel something different for me in my body and my heart, speaking to somebody who's a female and comes with, a very balanced, feminine and masculine aspect, somebody that I can have very intellectual conversations with, someone who I know quite well, but is still a woman and still carries something unique, has that ability to give, birth to a child, to be a life giver. And she has a child. She is a mother. She's more than that. She's, I would say, a healer. She's somebody that can be identified as a healer because she helps people on their paths of self-actualization, of going deeper into their bodies, into their wounds, into those parts of their bodies that hold emotion and can fuel limiting belief systems and fuel limitations on choice and behavior and being, an actualized person in the world, a person who can live from their heart and be, in relationship with their own heart and with something bigger, something mysterious, with the world around them, with, the list goes on. And so here we have the first woman, and her name is, she has two names that I will share, and I would like to get into this with her also, because we're going to go deep with this person. There's no question. The territory that we're going to navigate, definitely spiritual territory, but certainly territory that has a lot of intellectual, spiritual, emotional depth. I have a feeling about that, and a knowing, perhaps, because I do know this person and I know myself in terms of the territory that I like to navigate. And I think that her and I are kindred spirits in a sense, in that way. So her name is Tara Pinsonel. Her other name is Gaia Sophia. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Tara Pinsonel, Gaia Sophia.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you for that beautiful, well-rounded introduction and opportunity for me to feel my own reflecting back at me in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's in part, I don't, it's funny because I was going to say that's in part what we're here for, reflectors, mirrors for each other, for our own spiritual growth, in order for us to see deeper into that soul purpose. But there's something both spiritual and also nihilistic about that notion, or it can be viewed that way, because it does also feel like a hollow mirror of chambers that, where relationship and connection, if it is just about us being supportive of each other's unique soul exploration and growth in this, and at this time, what then is the purpose of connection and relationship in the human realm, and even deeper than that. I mean, we are like right now, just the communication, the connection that we have, we're navigating. It's impossible for me to really fully understand it and to articulate it, but there's a few things happening, and one of them is in this third dimension, and the other's on a spiritual realm, and it's happening all at once.
Well, I would like to speak of that Hall of Mirrors, because it's true. I think that's where the whole energy of Lucifer comes in, is the fractal of light. And that's a beautiful aspect of that energy. We can have endless experiences. We can have endless distortions, meaning endless experiences. That's the fractal of light. However, that's not very interesting anymore. What we want to have is the one true experiencer. Who is that? What is that? That dispels the illusion of all of those mirrors, all of those distortions, those fractals of light. And I think that is what we're doing right now globally. That's what the pioneers, if I use that term with reverence, I am using that term with reverence, that's what we're doing. We are collapsing the timelines of the Hall of Mirrors, of the distortion, to come back into the one true witness, the I am, what I call the Sophia Christ light, the I am.
Okay, so I think you've created a really nice foundation. There will be people who don't know what you're talking about, but I think that they also know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to break that down a little bit, and I feel like, the things that you're contemplating right now and what you're putting forth right now is a good foundation for this conversation, because I really do feel like it's relevant and timely. The first thing that I want to do before we get back to that,
Yeah.
I want to bring the conversation of names that I know you as two different names. I want to bring that into the Hall of Mirrors and into that conversation. And just for you personally, specifically, like on an emotional level, on a healing level, tell me about that process of looking at your name, giving it up, finding another one, looking back at it, the relationship that you have with the two names. Are you able to share a little bit about that? I think that's very relevant for a lot of people on this path right now.
Absolutely. I love talking about this. And if I get long-winded, please interject or stop me, because it is a lengthy story that I know well and can condense into the gold.
Okay.
But my legal birth name is Tara Pinsonel, and that's what my parents gave me upon the incarnation into this planet. It's a beautiful name. It's still my legal name. I'm not abandoning it or exiling it. However, that name also was a name that was born in the distortion of the Hall of Mirrors that I speak of. And there's beauty there. Like Tara in Sanskrit means earth and star. Those are two things that I embody as my lighthouse that helps me stay coherent with my path. But the way that my environment was, the distortion in my family, in the social cultural context that I was raised in, it felt like to identify with that name kept me hooked there. And there was something in my soul that wanted something else. So right now I'm 46, and I would say 20 some years ago, I could feel that my name was going to change. I know it sounds a little hokey, but it was a feeling in my body. And I expected that name to change through, a holy person coming to anoint me with this new name. And it's not how it came to be. It came during a healing exchange with a dear friend of mine back when I was living in Minnesota. He used the word Gaia in a sentence, and all my body lit up with electricity. And I knew what I was waiting for dropped in, but I did not trust it for its face value. I still put it through the filters of the external world before I would take that on, because that's where I was in my development as a person. I needed those external reflections, the validation, the understanding, the filter system of the external world. And I had one of my dear friends actually try it on for a weekend when I went camping with his family, and everyone called me Gaia just so that I could feel what it felt like in my body. But like anything new, it feels new. It's not grounded. It's not stabilized yet. It's new. And I didn't take it on in that moment. But within the next 3 months, I had moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico to start studying energy work. And the first week of class, I'm at the New Mexico Academy of Healing Arts, and it attracts interesting people to these courses, psychics, you name it, it's an interesting smorgasbord of people that get attracted to energy medicine school. And the woman that was introducing me knew nothing of this story. And I introduced myself as Tara. That was my birth name. So I brought it with me. And she said, I cannot introduce you as Tara or Tara. The only name that will come through is Gaia. I was like, what? Like she didn't know what I was pondering inside of me. I'm like, all right, I'll take it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the yes to Gaia happened. Now it's so natural and so embodied. It actually is a little bit like a record skipping when someone uses the word Terra, because it's really for like 3D system reasons people are using that. It's the government, it's the bank, it's like one of the systems of the 3D that refer to me with that name. And that's kind of how I differentiate them in my embodiment. So I know that I walk as a bridge between these realms. One little extra on that, because it's so interesting. I didn't know this till 6-7 years ago. There's a woman that wrote a really fascinating book. Her name's Ashian Dean. She wrote the book Voyagers. It's the best work she ever did. And it's the galactic history of Earth. And through her story, there's two names for the Earth. One is the Earth when it is humming in its harmonic universe of evolution, connected to the source of all life, whatever we want to call that. And her name was Gaia. And when Gaia was swiped into the realm of distortion, where we are lifting her up from at this moment, you know what her name was? Tara. It was in the book.
Wow.
I was like, what? Yeah, there's, and the stories, it's, we live our cosmology, in this realm. It just presents itself to us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that field. And the woman that mentioned your name from the stage there, she's sensing that field, that knowing field, I think. Now, to carry a name like that, because what does Gaia, what is the common understanding of the meaning of that term? It's quite grandiose, is it not?
Well, grandiose, if you consider the Earth grandiose. It's very grounded. It's the essence of the Earth. It's the spirit of the Earth.
Okay, the spirit of the Earth. Right. Okay. Yeah. I thought it also related to like a godly kind of origin, but not necessarily. Like it wouldn't be like me deciding to take on the name Jesus or other names for that I
Like
would be.
Brahma
Yeah, exactly. Like for it
or
to start
God.
to, exactly. So for it to affect the ego as opposed to strengthening it. Because that's really what we're trying, what's happening.
Mm.
And more than that, it's like strengthening, but also compartmentalizing the ego so then we can live in the I am more cleanly, I suppose. Like, do you agree with that in terms of, the importance of these names and to speak about, is Gaia, does it feel grandiose? Is it grandiose in terms of its meaning? Have there been tests for you in that way?
Yeah, I think that is a great topic of conversation, because if you look out into the landscape of this reality that we live in our communities, all the different names that are changing, and it's like, where is it coming from? Is it coming from the mind, or is it coming from listening? And in that listening, if it's coming from listening, then it absolutely becomes a lighthouse of your becoming. If it comes from grandiose ego attachment, then you're not listening. You're
Mm-hmm.
mimicking how spirit communicates, which is actually something I'd love to talk about if we have time for
Mm-hmm.
it. The mimicry of light. It's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, that's really important because the names that we have are opportunities for people that are outside of us to try to discern, possibly judge whether we are listening or mimicking. And, particularly in partnership, I find, or people who are in close proximity who depend on me to be listening and not mimicking for their own well-being, for their own stability in home or community or ceremony. Ceremony would be a very important part of that. Is this person, if this person is holding ceremony, are they coming from a place of listening or mimicking? And,
Yeah.
how important, like it's profoundly important, especially if we're working with medicines, or even if we're not. The act of ceremony can, if you're following somebody who's mimicking without knowing it, there's teachings there too. Like you can't really get bad medicine, even if it's bad medicine, through a certain lens.
Right.
But
There's the
yeah.
Hall of Mirrors, right? Lucifer. It's
Mm-hmm.
like endless opportunity, endless, but
Mm-hmm.
what do you want
Mm-hmm.
to do here?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's endless.
Yeah.
Eventually you want to get out of it. Yeah.
I think so. I want to.
Yeah. So, okay, well, Lucifer, can you explain that for our audience? Is that Luciferian? I've heard of the Luciferian through Rudolf Steiner. Is that what you're
Hmm.
speaking of? Is that the archetype? And can you just go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Um, so I'll just give a disclaimer. The language that I use, I tend to use what is the most dominant language used in our society that people will understand. And even if we're not Christian, we all understand Christianity, God, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, and Lucifer. It
Hmm.
exists within the architecture of our understanding of existence, even if it has been distorted. So there is no good, no bad. It doesn't exist. Everything is under the umbrella of, I'll use the word God, because recently a dear sister of mine brought that name back undistorted, and I'm like feeling that
Hmm.
fire of like, oh yeah, let's undistort that word God, and let's bring it
Hmm.
back into its like holy
Hmm.
flame that it is, after decades of not using it, of course.
Hmm.
And under the umbrella of God, everything is welcome here. Everything. All of the distortion, all of the I am presence, all of the lessons, all of the souls, all of the expressions of consciousness, the different dimensions, it is all welcome here. The energy of Lucifer, which I believe Steiner is talking about the same Lucifer that Christianity is talking about. And Lucifer essentially is a fractures and fractals the light. So the light, meaning inside every human being that exists, you have it's not even a tether, it's your lifeline to the origin of your creation, to God itself. Through any dimension that you experience, any incarnation that you may try on, whether that be on Earth, in the Pleiades, Orion, like you name it, you still have the holy source of God code inside of you. So with that on Earth, it makes evolution quite graceful. It's quite graceful when there's not a lot of distortion happening. Well, the energy, the Lucifer energy said, what if we just fractured that light a little bit And now we're sending off this array, this like rainbow into the field, that the souls can go and experience this. So there isn't anything inherently wrong with that. But what happens is on the earth, we are inside of the veil of forgetfulness. So you have no idea that you just took a path of distortion. You have no idea that you just took a path of someone mimicking the light of the I am, not that it is embodied. And now you are following those teachings and taking them for verbatim and living in distortion without being aware that that is what's happening.
And that's what we call the third dimension, three-dimensional reality. Or is there a difference?
Well, it's definitely in this dimension, which is the third dimensional reality. Does it exist in the fourth? I think as we raise in our consciousness and raise in our dimensional frequency, it becomes very, very obvious. Like, sure, you can choose that, but you're not unconsciously choosing that. And there are races, you could say, consciousnesses that intentionally choose to go off the beaten path consciously. But the difference is on Earth in the 3D with that veil of forgetfulness over our field, we're unconsciously choosing it. That's why when we are in ceremony and, limpia, clean, 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 it is so there's no fractals of light.
Right. And we can be in the I am or the present moment.
Yes. Yeah. But you have to kind of do it over and over and over again, really, until, every day, like when I wake up, that's the first thing I do. I'm like, because why would I want to live in a fractal? I guess that's the main thing. That's not my purpose in this life. That's not what I'm doing.
So why do some souls,
brings me back
why do some souls choose that? Why? It seems like it's not just the person deciding that they don't want to feel the feelings that will arise if their bandwidth from the light of God increases. Because that's what I see. It's like when people are on a healing path, whether they choose that or not, the healing path is really just a decision whether or not to open the bandwidth of the light of God. Because when that light of God comes through and that love vibration comes through, it exposes the things that are beneath the surface that have been sort of put to the side and compartmentalized. And there's also many explanations for that in terms of, survival, getting through a childhood of traumatic upbringing and that kind of thing. There's many nuances to that. But ultimately, we bring this light of love and it opens us, and the pain that we felt before gets brought to the surface. It gets seen and re-felt and rediscovered, and that capacity to nurture it from more of an adult perspective, more of a governing perspective, or a nurturing perspective. But if somebody decides to say no to that, from my point of view, it seems like it's not always just to not feel those feelings. It's also this soul has decided long before they want to be in this fractal space, as you call it, for the duration of their life. Which I guess comes to the question also, which I'd love to hear your answer to or your opinion on, which is, why are we here? What this Luciferian kind of dance, what are we getting from it? But to answer that, but also, I'd love your take on why are some people here to experience that and others not, or are they not here to experience that? Is it really just choice, and is it really just a veil that I don't know? It's above my pay grade. What do you say?
Okay, there's so many questions.
I know.
Brain is
it's a
trying
big
to
topic. It's like the meaning of life only.
each one. But there is a great answer, and it's the one that sticks out first, and then we'll go into other ones that seem important. Why would we choose to come into this veil of forgetfulness and be at the whim of endless amounts of distortions that never stop coming from everywhere that we look, except for maybe a couple people that we may not have even met that know how to radiate the I am Sophia Christ presence. And that's why Yeshua is such a huge person in our architecture of our reality, because we're like, oh wait, who besides him, who else has, embodied this Sophia Christ light? And this is, I'm going to say it kind of like fact, because that's how it lives in my body, but take it as you will. The power of love, the Sophia Christ light, the I am, is so potent that we say, bring me in any distortion, try to cover it up with as many blankets as you can, and I guarantee it will find its way to give life. So outside of this reality of the third dimension, I will say the dimensions of reality are very aware. Even the most like kind of twisted ones from the perspective of, you know, love and light, even the most twisted consciousnesses that have chose to separate themselves from God consciousness, even they know that you still bow down to that energy. Energy is still number one. So on Earth, when things started to go awry, is because the I am, the God within, up to being listened to as the having a seat at the table. You know, before we like, you know, my name, the story with my name is a great example. It's like, okay, I could just do that, but how do I know it's coming from me or a whisper that I'm listening to? You wait. It will come back. It will show you. You have patience. You listen. You go slow. And so in this realm of distortion, we come in here knowing, remembering, because we're eternal beings. We've always lived this way. We remember that that is the strongest impulse, and we put it to the test. All right, throw me in, boss. Throw me in, coach. Put me in. I'm ready to play. Yeah, sure. I'll take zero memory. Okay, sure. I'll have a family that isn't present. Okay, you know, we'll take it because we know that every distortion will bend to a being that embodies the Sophia Christ light, the I am. That becomes an anchor point and radiates from the portal of that person outwards. And what does that mean? It means that you're in full coherence with yourself, and that means that you bring coherence into the field wherever you go. And then what happens? The distortion is, it becomes more obvious. And I do believe that human beings do have a good heart, a genuine heart, and that they will naturally adjust to their highest frequency if they feel the frequency, the bell of that rung near them. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, you know, oh yeah. Okay, I can let go of that judgment, or I let go of that shame. Oh, I was attaching to this relationship out of survival. Let me let go of that. It's like, it's a very natural byproduct, and it's intentionally relatively slow, except for the time we're in right now. It seems to be very fast, but it's so that the human nervous system can integrate the amount of light, of frequency that comes in with this presence without going into psychosis, without you know, disrupting our responsibilities of being a parent, of being whoever we are in the world. I could keep going to the next question, but let me just pause.
Creation of this experience may be just because what else are you going to do? Like if you're from the point of view of creator, you know, using that word intentionally, which a word for God that emphasizes the ability that God has to create and passes on to his children, so to speak, this ability to create and to be creative, you know, out of a, you know, particularly from a place that is authentic and with the light of God, you know, at that core, you know, the core of the intention. Because the questions around the why are endless, but almost seem to be pointless to a degree, because experience itself and that process of slowly taking the protective blankets off is worthwhile in and of itself, just for itself, if that makes sense. Like the experience of that is somehow sacred. And it's like our creator, if there's, you know, I mean, there's so much, but if there's one thing that she knows, it's the potency of the sacred and of that process of unveiling our true light is just a sacred act. So that's why it exists.
Yeah. And that feeling, you know, if you're always swimming in the frequency of God, and it doesn't have the same impact as when you start to delayer and you're re-experiencing it again. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you get to do that here.
Totally. Over and over again. Every time it's a little
Over
different.
and over.
There's just a little bit of a different perspective. Like every time that because I'll go into a ceremony, I will just clean right up. And the I am, or the present moment, is just so loud. My heart's open. And, fast forward to a month later, and the cluttering is taken over without me knowing it. And, there's fractals all over the place, and I realize it. I see it more and more clearly each time, and I can do my daily practice, and that certainly helps. But I do need ceremony to hit that big reset. I long for it, but also it's not an addiction. It's a longing out of a knowing of, of what that feels like and what that experience is like to be closer to God and to be more in your heart and to be closer to that sacred energy. But yeah, it's powerful, this, being alive. This whole life experience is quite a wild ride. I have a question going back. I want to know Sophia Christ consciousness.
Mm.
Two-part question. What is Sophia? What is that reference to? And how does it relate to Christ? And maybe it's three-part. And third part, that's the second part of your name. How do we bring that in?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm looking at you, like from my point of view, I'm seeing somebody, and I'd like you to clarify, if this feels off, or I'm seeing somebody who's brought in these very powerful names to remind themselves because of the over time, the fractals come back in and we need to clean and we need to return to that place. Like your name itself is sort of like a Post-it stamp on the wall that says,
Mm-hmm.
don't forget Gaia, don't forget Sophia, don't forget Christ consciousness, don't forget that part of yourself. So, and I love these 3-parted
100%.
questions just to see if I can throw you off, but I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to work backwards because
Yep.
that's how I like to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't touch on that when I spoke of my name because we started on another tangent that was interesting, and there we're off to the races.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sophia came 10 or 11 years ago now, and part of it out of logistics because Gaia just stood alone. And so they've started putting Gaia paperwork with my last name, Gaia Pinsonel. I'm like, oh, that doesn't go together. Or the last name of my son, Gaia Hill. I'm like, that doesn't go together either. So I'm like, I kind of need 2 names in this culture to stabilize itself.
Mm-hmm.
And Sophia came. Sophia, the name of essentially means wisdom. And I know these names sound grandiose, as if I gave myself this cloak and crown of queendom. And if anyone has ever met me, I have a strong presence, but I in no way push or pull the field. I like to listen and do my part in it. So together, those names mean the wisdom of the earth for these times. And that's the Post-it note of what my mission is as a human being embodying the Sophia Christ, where we'll get there, or doing my best. I talk about more about that. And so what is my mission? It is to help people remember and collapse false timelines so that they can live in their true essence here on earth. And through that, they already came to see the new earth. I'm just here to kind of help them remember who they already are and clear some of that distortion and give it a perspective so that they can claim who they are. It's quite simple. But it's for these times of where the earth is now. And if you look in the Vedic, not astrology, but it's like their season, like we're coming out of the Kali Yuga into the Satya Yuga. So there is a shedding of these distortions as we enter the golden age, which is quite simple. I would say that that's usually my message, is that it's quite simple. Actually, the distortion complicates it. The I am presence of Sophia Christ makes it quite lovely and super simple. So in the Kali Yuga, we can see that the masculine force of creation has been the dominant narrative in our culture. And we can just look at Christianity for one example of that, of how it's Yeshua throughout all the books. The book of Mary Magdalene, you have to dig for it. It's not in the New Testament or the Old Testament. I'm not a big religious buff, but I embody the essence of these things. And so both Mary Magdalene and Yeshua will say, don't follow me. We're just pointing to what exists here for everyone. And we have been willing to work through our distortions to give you a taste of what is possible for you to do to yourself, within yourself. It exists within everyone. So the return of the divine feminine, this is a big thing in our culture right now, and I subscribe to it. It's like bringing back into balance the Sophia Christ light. And maybe there's different words in different cultures. Again, I speak to the one that's dominant in my culture and in my language, or our language, the English language. But if you look into other cultures, they'll have different names for it. But because it's not something that has been invented by the ego, it exists beyond our dimension through all the dimensions, you'll see a commonality. And in that commonality, you have creation itself, right? You have God, the source of all creation, where it doesn't have any personality to it. It doesn't have anything that a human could really identify with. It's a emanating frequency. And when that frequency wanted to experience itself, then it started to birth something. So the first birth really is, I believe, it's the feminine force of creation. It's the divine mother. It's the womb of creation. It's the Sophianic lineage, Sophia Christ consciousness. And then everything needs to be in balance so you have your mirror. Well, I mean, we're still in the veil of forgetfulness, right?
Yeah, but it's such a beautiful, the picture you're painting there. I've never heard that before. And it's just so beautiful. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't it be that way? And I have no idea, but it's so beautiful. So, yeah.
And that's how I feel about the Divine Mother. I think she is so beautiful. Like when someone carries her essence, so beautiful. Like tears in the eyes, like the compassion of a true mother.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, your eyes show every joy, every pain, every sorrow that all humanity feels all at once. And because sometimes there is nothing we can do about it. When someone is living in distortion, we can just love and have compassion in our eyes and let that soul go through their soulic journey, even though it's so heart-wrenching. You probably feel this as a parent, to see your child be on their individual sovereign journey and the emotions that they feel that you're aware of. It's like, like my heart. Like I've joked in ceremony in Sweat Lodge that I try to love a little less sometimes, because to let myself feel the amount of love I feel, it is not comfortable. It is painful.
Yeah. To the degree that there's a mother outside of you watching you. And so there's this container, and it's like, if that was the first thing that creation created, was this mother energy, it would have created a container and a capacity for so much more to be created within, while still being held in love. So it just makes, from the rational, humble, pitiful human mind, it's just rational and beautiful and perfect. Yeah.
And everybody craves it.
And everybody has it in them. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody has it in them.
Yeah. Can channel that, but no more than channeling it, embody that. Somehow both.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what these times are calling for. It's like, we have these sacred vessels. Like it's not Egypt anymore. It's like our body is the temple. Like we are the portal. We are the timeline collapser, the frequency disruptor, the code carriers. And it's about remembering and then holding in reverence that which we are and that which our neighbors are, even if they can't remember right now.
Yeah. And so you say Sophia Christ consciousness. Why do you connect those two?
To bring balance, because for someone to embody the I am, the Sophia Christ light, same, that means that inside of themselves, they have balanced their inner rivers of their masculine and feminine, and they no longer need a mirror outside of them to show them that. Okay, there's the Luciferian, loop. He's coming back, the Hall of Mirrors. At some point, you no longer need those mirrors outside of you, and they all start to collapse. And it's because, well, it can't happen without the balance of both the Father and the Mother, the Sophia and the Christ. Those two are synonymous with each other.
Right.
And they keep each other in harmony, in balance, in coherence.
Well, I know the mythology of Christ well. I don't know the mythology of Sophia. So from a mythological perspective, can you elaborate?
That's
like, where does the name Sophia come
question.
from in terms of mythologically speaking, in terms of our understanding of is there a narrative that historical narrative or that name conjures?
Well, yes, absolutely. Some of these stories I don't know because it's not something that I teach, and those that are teaching the mystery schools for women would have a better story to share with you.
Okay.
I personally don't want to choose sides, you could say. Like what what lights me up isn't just empowering women, it is the collapsing of timelines so that we can stand in the I am without distortion and the mechanics of how we arrive there. So if you look up Sophia, the root of it, it does mean wisdom. And there are historically Sophionic lineages, like the one that Mary Magdalene walked. She would be under the Sophionic lineage. It is the feminine embodiment of this portion of creation. So you can embody one portion of creation, and that's going to be amazing, and that's going to be illuminating. However, it is the embodiment of both that allow for the I am to come forward. So in the story of Mary Magdalene, like she went through many mystery schools where she was embodying the ability to be a vessel for the divine feminine. And she didn't actually embody the I am until much later in her life, around the time that Yeshua, his time on the Mount of Golgotha, the crucifixion. But she embodied the principles of the divine feminine and the mystery school. So we kind of get into these little nuances here where, most of people that would be even interested in listening to this podcast, they're still in the process of soul embodiment, which is a little different than the I am Sophia Christ light.
Right.
I know.
Well, I can imagine, because wouldn't that be, if you were embodying, that Christ light, you would be a guru somewhere on a mountain, like, or in an ashram. If you're Hindu, you would be, there would be no need to be entering into even a community sort of realm beyond, just sharing your teachings.
Historically, yes, I do think that now it can be a householder experience. Because we're seeding the Satya Yuga, we're seeding the new earth. So what used to be in the Himalayas, in our Bible, is now really at the helm for anyone that wants to go through the fire, so to speak. And what is the fire? It's the melting of all distortions that you have unconsciously claimed, including, being a savior that actually
Mm-hmm.
triggered something which in the beginning of your introduction to me, I love healer. Yeah,
Mm.
I totally, if I had one identity, that's probably the one that would make the most sense. And something I've been sitting with the last 3 weeks is letting go of that identity that I'm doing any of the fixing, that I'm doing any of the work,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm just going to sit in the center of my center and radiate, and whatever people want, that's up to them in their soul journey. And so I'm kind
Mm-hmm.
of taking that power back, like from that dilution back. And these are the belief systems, the vows, and the contracts that we've made out of love. We've made out of service. And they still are being asked to come up for revision.
Now, going back to the Sophia thing, in terms of Sophia Christ consciousness, so this is something that I'm going to definitely look into, because I feel like there's more to explore, like in the avenues that you shared. There's like schools of thought, there's teachers evolving. And is it confusing for women,
Oh,
in your opinion? And maybe I think you might be speaking to the answer behind this question already, but for women that are on this path, that are on a spiritual path, and are crossing the thresholds of the rites of passage, walking through the fire and coming out the other side and experiencing the light of God, and resonating with the symbolism of Christianity, not in the way that that it's been passed down by other men predominantly, but other humans, let's say, but from the origin of the not this, not the not Christ consciousness, but the spirit of Christ, which I also feel is an important distinction, but also similar, but also is different. But the question that I'm asking, though, is for women that are connecting to this, and you have Mother Magdalene, you have all these other archetypes. Uh, Christ is still the top dog, and he is a man, and so we're our culture has obviously has been struggling with too much emphasis on male energy, whether it's within men or women. The masculine has been revered and has been prized, like the intellectual achievements, the technological achievements, structural, all of the stuff, where the mother and the nurturer and more feminine archetypes through a Jungian lens have been dismissed and are very low-paying jobs and all this stuff. So you have now women who are becoming leaders, and an important part of changing the perspective of the people on the planet for the sake of the planet is there sort of like an eye on, okay, Christ is still a dude. Mary Magdalene is still sort of subordinate to Christ. That's problematic through a certain lens. Like, we can't be looking at less than or more than through the lens of gender differentiation. So what do you got?
like, where would I steer these women that are looking for,
Well, is
some
that
guidance?
the women that are a part of the Sophia Christ consciousness, and the exploration of Mary Magdalene, is there, and wanting to combine Sophia with Christ, Christ being male, Sophia being female, is it a part of our evolution and a part of our orientation around Christ consciousness, around the spirit of Christ, that looks a little deeper into our perspective of gender and differentiating, where, like, if Christ was a woman, if Christ, the second coming of Christ, if he came back as a woman, that would sort of level the playing field, sort of thing. But there's this sort of conflict that seems to be up at the heart of going back to Christian mythology, unless you're updating it. So and are you speaking to the updating of that mythology by adding the word Sophia to Christ consciousness? Maybe that's more specific.
Yeah, I think that I am updating the distortion that has been proliferated in the field by using them together and planting the seed to whoever is listening that there is another perspective. I was reminded, as you were talking, of when I did a couple pilgrimages to France, actually, to follow the whispers of the Sophianic path, the path of Mary Magdalene. And on my second trip, it brought me to Mount Segur. Mount Segur was the last stronghold of the Cathar people. And the Cathars are people that we don't hear a lot about, and we also don't hear about the balance of the Sophia Christ light, because anyone that practiced that was erased from history. So this is where Friday the 13th came. This is where the Pope gave the French king permission, because he asked if they could get rid of all Cathars, anyone that practiced how do you say that word? Gnosticism?
Yeah, Gnosticism. Yeah.
Gnostics? Gnostics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In both of those, the Sophia Christ was embedded in their way of life. So it's, so I'm leaving that as a trail crumb, like the evidence, you could look into history. But the thing with that is so many of their books were burned, as were every living, breathing person, because the Pope said, kill them all, we'll let God sort it out. So when I was in Mount Segura, it was the last stronghold of the Cathar people, and they had an option. You could either join us, join the distortion, join our religion, or be burned at the stake. You choose. You choose. And because their faith was unshakable, that they would rather give up their physical existence than to perpetuate the distortion, they said, we'll take the stake. We'll burn us in the fire. We'll do it. And, it was that experience where I stepped on that land, where the memory of that Sophia Christ light really started to come in a way that wasn't in theory, it wasn't read, it wasn't an idea, it was now a lived experience. And with that lived experience, my experience of the unseen in the way that she communicates to me just got amplified 100-fold. So when we go down one river, it doesn't mean we don't have premonitions, psychic dreams, like you name it. But imagine if those two rivers are combined. Then what? Then you have a whole perspective, a whole cosmology to work with that's very settled and stabilized, and it doesn't defend. I think you can appreciate this from your Lakota teachings with the Heyoka. It's like you don't defend now. You don't have to fight for anything. You don't have to defend anything. It just is. But when you're still polarized in any way, there's still that tendency of is one better than the other, or you're fighting me? It's like there's this polarization, which is very third dimension, and it's very Hall of Mirrors, Lucifer, until that coherence of balance comes back in. Then you're like, oh, okay, all of this is actually medicine. Okay, all of this is playing out this cosmic play, and I don't actually have to participate. I don't need to change it. I don't need to judge it, but I also can radiate a different frequency into this field of distortion and do my part. And so the funny thing is, okay.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought there.
Okay. One last thing, because when I came back from the first trip to France, I was finishing my bachelor's in psychology, and I'm just now finishing my master's in counseling. I got my diploma in the mail as soon as I came back from France. And you know where my university was?
Where?
Sophia University. So it was she gave me the metaphor physically of the threshold I had just walked through, of the initiation. And I laughed hysterically. And so,
yeah,
that's kind of how it can play out.
I think it's important. It's a big ask, culturally, the medicine that you're carrying, and certainly will take time, but maybe less time these days. But this, going back, to the question that I had about Christ showing up as a man, I work with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is known to be a grandmother, and it's a beautiful way to frame, to use our words to capture an essence of a spirit. But that spirit is not female, and it's not male. It's a powerful spirit. It's a spirit that's been here much longer than the plant people think of these plants, thinking of ayahuasca. as a plant, a spirit, but it's a spirit that's very, very uh, grandiose and has been here a lot longer than the plant that it chose to manifest as in this world of ours. Both coming back to
Mm-hmm.
Christ, I do, I've had the deep, I would say, honor of feeling the essence of the spirit of Christ. And there is a connotation of that spirit being male because that spirit chose to show up as a male. But that spirit is much bigger and more powerful, similar to ayahuasca, than the manifestation that it chose to incarnate as on this planet as a being. And whether it shows up again, the Spirit of Christ, as a 2.0 or not in the flesh, and whether it's a male or female, it is choosing to do that without there being a distinction between the choice of being either female or male, other than what will be of greater service to the people on this planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that message
Hence
and that
why it
combination of
came.
Sophia,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very powerful. And will
Mm-hmm. And
challenge
hence
a lot of
why,
people.
and that's why I think Yeshua was in a male body 2,000 years ago. You know, the times it
Mm-hmm,
had to be
mm-hmm,
that way.
mm-hmm,
And now it's really about the feminine body.
mm-hmm.
And it's bringing that balance back in. But anyone that is truly carrying that spirit won't ever say, like, oh, this gender is, superior to the other gender. It's just, that conversation is a very polarized one, which speaks to the frequency it exists in.
Yeah, it's really just choice. Before we show up here, and the choice is, it's either here or there. It's not really more than that, other than, the significance of the growth of the soul. It's like, the bigger picture is just so much bigger than what we see and what we recognize here. But the battles that we feel within, like the projections, the fears, you have groups of men getting together out of wounding from mother toxic mothering, and or but also
Yeah,
toxic
yeah.
over mothering through not females but institutions that take on the role of mother and the role of father. But these things I love, they can be distinguished through a Jungian lens, but you have to kind of agree to talk within that cathedral, or that space of what are our definitions of masculine, feminine. But the human mind and those fractals that you speak of, and when I say that you speak of, I understand perfectly what you're talking about, and I'm 100% on board. But it's language that I'm not too familiar with, so I'm just sort of putting it back to that's your language to speak of something else that I might choose to use different language. I don't know what I would use, but those fractals. That or projections, that hall of mirrors is
Mm-hmm.
like, again, what we think it's about, overcoming the wound of a father or a mother, what we think it's about,
Yeah.
abusive this or abusive that, is as relevant as that is for our human body, and the healing of our psyche and our emotional, being. It's still not what we think it is. And so,
Mm-hmm.
those deeper investigations and letting go and forgiveness. Real forgiveness, I do believe, comes with an acceptance that it's not what I think it is. And to let go of it not being what you think it is a huge milestone of relinquishing control around the human experience and the wounding that we carry. There's definitely a powerful relationship there.
I like that.
Yeah. So here we are. Okay. So I want to ask one more question. There's other things that we want to get into. That'll be part two. But for part one, I want to just golden age. I love this question. So here's the question. We're striving for something culturally. We're striving for, a golden age. We're building something culturally. We're starting to integrate indigenous teachings, starting to integrate Christian teachings that are clean, that are cleansed, that are washed of the sort of the stamp of the human, the human. I don't know. I don't want to say toxicity. That's the word that's coming to mind. It's like, it's not that. It doesn't need to be that. I love
Distortion.
it. Thank you. Distortion. Great. the human distortion. But the golden age, the I am, the present moment, the being in our heart. The golden age isn't really about what's out there. It's about what's within. And there are people already living the golden age, but there's also a metamorphosis of a universal golden age. What are your thoughts on the duality of that?
Yeah, I see a couple timelines playing out. There is, the Satya Yuga, the golden age, the new earth is absolutely happening. You look around, especially in this younger generation, their eyes are shining. They are in community, in love, doing their best. And then you have another timeline, you could say, that are struggling to survive, that are afraid, that are giving their power away to the systems, whether it be banking or education or the medical, like that is up in our awareness for a good reason. Like those systems that have been created from the lens of the distortion, like they're all coming up for dissolution, really. So the more that we put our attention into the present moment to trust in our relationships, trust in our self, to remember to live simply close to the land, like the future earth will start to be born from the inside out, and we will start to magnetize towards those that are in the resonant field. And from there, we'll start to build communities and things that will sustain us, not just because we're looking to survive, but this is how we want to live. We want to be efficient with our energy. We want to give our magic in places that it's needed and appreciated. And there are going to be prototypes in our life. Yes, you said there's some that are already living that. And there's waves coming, those that are seeding it. And it will continue to work this way in waves until those that are on the old timeline of fear and survival, they really incarnate into another planetary system where they can learn those lessons, no good, no bad, but they're still, their soul is needing to work out polarity and fear and those teachings from there. So it just kind of drifts in this way. And the more that we work with ourselves and we trust the dissolving of this old timeline, and the more that we say yes each day to the present moment, like the more graceful it's going to be on earth and in ourselves.
Beautiful.
That's my response.
I feel like you tied a bow very eloquently, around this conversation. Thank you. And any parting words here? Tara, Gaia, Sophia, Pinsonel, what would you like to say in closing?
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to share and this platform to share it more widely. And if I had any like parting words of wisdom, it's like every day is your whole life happening from morning till night, and treat it as such, like have reverence for the day that we get to have today and the people that we get to encounter, and deep reverence for you, for the path that you're on, the way that our lives have interwoven and continue to interweave, and for this burning desire within you of curiosity, and especially around the feminine. I've known that has been inside of you for years. So I'm grateful to be a part of this path with you.
Very grateful that you're the first female guest on this show. I didn't see that coming. It came through synchronicity, and it was very loud and clear to me that this was, you were the person to invite for that inaugural kind of dance with the feminine on this, in this way, this form, medium. So, and I hope hope you come back, and we'll continue these conversations. They're very alive for me. You're very articulate with, there's a mythological framework that you work within, like, with a vernacular, like a vocabulary that is very specific and very concise. I don't work within that framework, in terms of like, it's not the literature that I'm gravitated, or the, there's a Shipibo mythology, there's a Jungian mythology, I can get my head around, kind of chew on that kind of stuff. But when we talk about Golden Age and Sophia Christ consciousness, we're going into vocabulary that I need to sort of, that you help me. I know exactly what you're talking about. So I appreciate the, I really appreciate the mythological framework that you're working within. It's, we're all students of spirit, and these different frameworks are different, but they're the same. It's the same intention to get closer, to our heart and to our heart's
Mm-hmm.
path and to God, so to speak, whatever that might mean for any individual out there. So, yeah, very grateful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too.
You're welcome. And with that, we'll we'll close this episode. I'm your host, Mark A. Lewis. This is the Sacred Village podcast. Until next time, over and out. I lay my head down. Check out my lovely partner's music, Christina Jessen, at christinajessen.com. And there's also more information on what we're doing. We're doing a land project up here, traditional land development with a community intention. And if you're interested in any of the retreats that we're a part of and part of organizing, you can find all that information at sacredvillagepodcast.com. Have a wonderful day. Floating down and down like a feather, I floated down and down, and I floated down and down like a feather.